All right, what's up, everybody? Today we got a very special guest with us. We got Daniel Rosenthal, also known as Rosentrain on Instagram. This guy is very, very knowledgeable on a lot of the stuff that we've covered in the past, but he brings his own spin to it. And on top of that, this guy has been featured in Total Shape, Blog, Spark People, Weight Watchers, Pop Sugar, and Muscle and Fitness, the creme de la creme of fitness magazines. So I can't wait to pick his brain. This is like a win-win here because I selfishly want to learn a thing or two, and I know he's going to provide a ton of value to everybody listening. So Daniel, welcome.
That is so kind. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you so much for having me as well.
Of course, of course. I love bringing people on, especially people with your area of expertise. Now, before we dive into anything like actionable, any specific steps that everybody's here to listen for, let's get a little bit of background. Like, how did you get into fitness? Were you always that super fit guy, or where'd you start from?
No, absolutely not. Never a super fit guy. Like when I was a kid, I played various sports, like most boys do, and like most people do now. And it was when I went to university that the problem started. So I started to eat more, exercise, not as much as I was. Started smoking, drinking way too much, and I gained a ton of weight over university, which for me was 4 years. And I realized I just woke up one morning coughing after smoking something like, I don't know, 40 or 50 cigarettes the previous day and having had way too much drink the last night. And I just realized that I was just sick of it, just completely fed up. So for me, quitting smoking was the number one thing. Okay, so that was like the foundational thing that caused like the chain reaction of everything else to start falling in place. Because once I was no longer coughing my lungs up every single morning, I could then go out and exercise. I started to jog because I was pretty badly overweight. And of course, when you're overweight, we all think we have to jog to lose weight. So, just to make it clear from the very beginning, I was making mistakes. So I started jogging. I still remember running a mile for the first time. It took me about 20 minutes and I had to lie down for another 20 minutes to recover from it. It was just horrendous. Got back into strength training, which I'd loosely been doing in my late teens. Started making a lot of nutrition changes. Now, I went way too far the opposite direction. I went from eating a diet of basically 100% unhealthy, what I call less nutritious food, to 100% only nutritious food. So I went way too far in the other direction. I was doing way too much cardio, and I did lose weight. I lost a lot of weight. I think I lost around 40-ish pounds from my highest weight to my lowest weight. So I've definitely probably lost somewhere around 30 to 40 pounds of body fat from that time. But it took me my entire 20s to stabilize and to stop, kind of like to bring my weight back under control, because I would, eating lots and lots of nutritious food, but sometimes the quantity was way too much. So I had to dial back on that. And it took me until I was probably early 30s to find that balance that we talk about all the time on Instagram, about the whole, okay, let's be 80-20 when it comes to nutrition. Let's focus on strength training, but do cardio just for health reasons. Let's go out and get lots and lots of steps and get that walking. It took me from, age, I think I was 22 when I first started like my whole like fitness journey, probably until I was in my early 30s. I'm 37 now, and I've only felt like, okay, it's only been really since I was like 32-ish that I've really been able to get a good handle on this whole 80-20 thing. So it does take a long time to figure out. And that was with like training to become a personal trainer. That was with, getting the nutrition training as well. So I had the benefit of that to help me as well. Whereas, the people that we coach, they've not had the benefit of like becoming fitness professionals and engaging with other people who can help them on, with the way that they're doing things. These are people who, I don't know about you, but my clients tend to be, older, in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so they've not had the benefits that we've had of the internet and finding people like Andrew Coates or Jordan Syatt who are talking about all this great stuff. They've just kind of been trying to follow whatever the latest diet culture has been since, the 70s, 80s, 90s, the 2000s, the whole swing from high fat to low fat, high carb to low carb, Paleo Atkins, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
And
to your
yeah,
point, that generation just got a raw deal. I mean,
yeah,
they were the
yeah,
guinea pigs, and they're the shoulders that we all stand on right now.
absolutely. And there was so much shit, especially for women. Like
Mm-hmm.
men, we've like there's more pressure now on us guys to look a certain way, but 20 years ago that wasn't the case.
No,
It
it was
really
all
was not the case,
power lifters that were like Louis Simmons
for
people that
sure.
looked gross, but they were strong as shit.
Yeah, yeah. And if we were overweight, we could say, oh, it's mostly muscle, right? We could always say that. We'd be able
Yeah,
to feel okay about
I,
that. But
I'm
like
I'm
women have,
accumulating mass.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but women have always had it way harder than men.
Yep.
Until very recently, they've had it, and probably still is, to like they probably have it way harder. There's certain expectations to look a certain way, and it's easier, let's be frank, to be an overweight guy than it is to be an overweight woman in society. It's unfortunate, but that is the case, right?
100%.
And yeah, so like I managed to figure it out, helped my clients when I was an in-person personal trainer, and continue to do the same thing now that I'm an exclusively online trainer.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, how long were you in person? Sorry, did I miss that?
No. I
Okay.
started being an in-person trainer at the beginning of 2017. So I had, you know, 2017, 2018, 2019, just over 3 years of in-person coaching when COVID hit and all the gyms closed down. And I
Yeah.
was in Toronto at the time. So Toronto was one of the most heavily locked down cities in the entire Western world. Like, not
I
sure if you
couldn't
heard that, but
believe
yeah,
it.
it was, yeah. So all the gyms closed down, but luckily I had launched my online fitness business about a month or two before lockdown happened. So I had two
Wow.
clients and I had the foundation. So I super lucky that I could grow that during that pandemic. And yeah, so yeah, I was in it, and then I have had the odd in person like since then. But yeah, like I spent about 3.5 years total being an in-person trainer. I did, I can't remember how many sessions, something like 3,000 sessions,
Mhm.
I think. So about 3,000 hours of like in-person training with people, and countless hours now of like online coaching people. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes by in a blink though, right? Like
It's
when you go back
yeah.
and tally it up, you're like, shit, that was a lot of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, absolutely. And it was so great being in that beginner stage of like realizing that, oh, when I joined the gym, I don't really know anything about properly coaching people. And even my fitness knowledge was like definitely subpar when I started working as a trainer. But luckily, the
Mhm.
gym that I worked for were fantastic in training me up, giving me knowledge, pointing me in the direction of which books to read and which courses to take. So I gained a ton of knowledge working for that gym.
Yeah, when I saw you had the PN level 1, I'm like, this guy gets it. And for anybody that
PN1
doesn't
is
know,
is so great. Yeah.
yeah, precision nutrition is the one that I'm talking about, PN. And
Yeah.
it seems like all the best, most successful coaches usually have that under their belt because it's
Yeah,
not even from a nutritional standpoint, it's just a habit setting standpoint.
absolutely. The PN1, it's yeah, sure, there's a big section on nutrition, but it's
Yeah.
mostly how to be a coach,
Yeah.
mostly how to help people get results without telling them they have to follow a particular diet or they must do this style of workouts. It's all about, meeting your client where they are, figuring out what's realistic for them, what isn't realistic for them, and coming up with a plan that's going to work specifically for them.
Yeah. The thing that blew my mind the most was the levels, like the level 1, level 2, level
Yeah.
3. And it,
Yeah.
like, for anybody that's not familiar, the level 1 is like pretty much most clients where it's like, don't really sleep well, don't really drink their water. Like the basics aren't really taken care of. Level
Yeah.
2 is like where you kind of have an idea and you want to take it to that next level. And then level 3
Mm.
is like bodybuilder competitors and stuff like that. And we have
Yeah.
all these people trying to teach level 3 stuff to level 1 people. And it's like, you're just not there yet.
Yep. I mean, quite frankly, I consider myself a level 1 client.
Me
I don't want to
too.
do anything special. I just want to lift weights 3 days a week. I want to stay lean, but not excessively lean because, you don't want to get too lean. You want, for a guy, you want to stay, 12 to 15% body fat. That's great. That's a healthy level. And I don't want to do anything extreme with nutrition except for, I want to eat vegetables and fruit and get my protein so I can get strong and sleep more and manage stress. And I don't really want to compete as a power lifter, so I'm not a level 2 client. I don't want to be a bodybuilder or prepare for a magazine shoot, or I don't want to be an actor who has to look ripped on a very specific date for about half an hour while they get that shot before they go back to how they looked before. Most people don't need that level of attention to detail. And that's why when I talk about all of the unsustainable things, I'm talking about that kind of thing that you do actually need to get to that point. Like, to look like Hugh Jackman did in Wolverine, you have to train in a very specific way and eat in a very specific way for 6 months or so. And he looks like that super ripped look for what, an hour maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe an hour he looks like that, with good lighting and let's say some digital enhancement, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, he looks like that for about half an hour once every 5 years or so. And during that prep, there's personal chef, there's personal trainers. He has no job to think about. He's got people taking care of his kids. He's a Hollywood millionaire, so of course he does. It's his job. His job is to look good at a particular time.
Exactly. But why wouldn't the average person be able to pull that off? Like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
precisely. I mean, we've all got money for personal chefs, and
they're going for that look. Shouldn't it be doable? Because like their personal, that celebrity's personal trainer put out their workout program. Shouldn't it be attainable?
Oh man, yeah, that's the whole thing, right? I mean, I get it. It's so great. I mean, it's genius marketing. It's genius marketing, right?
Hey,
like
I mean, if I was their personal trainer, I would do the exact same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, here's the Hugh Jackman Wolverine workout.
Yeah.
Here it is. And then you look at it and think, there's no way a normal person can do that. Like you and I can do that kind of thing.
No
way.
Because we don't recover and we don't eat the way that you need to get to allow yourself to train that way in the first place.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of people miss the boat, is like, you got to have the foundation of like, do you even recover well enough to handle the workload?
Yeah. Yeah. And when it comes to recovery, things like sleep and stress management. I mean, if you've got a full-time job, you're not going to be able to recover, even if you have got a good, let's say, meditation practice going on and you're sleeping for 8 hours every night. If you also have a 9 to 5 and you have kids, chances are you're not going to be in a good place to recover from that level of intense work. It's just humans can't really train that way, because a Hugh Jackman Wolverine style of working out, let's be frank, that's a 7-day-a-week plan for a couple of hours at the very least, plus some more stuff in between. It's not an easy program to follow.
Yeah. And especially with the food quality, like you see like his diet or the Rock's diet, and you're like, oh, so I can cook that, but do you? Like, does anybody actually want to cook that? No.
And you think they cook it?
No. And do you think your kids want to eat that way? No.
Exactly. And are you going to want to spend that much on that kind of food a month, even if you are going to cook it yourself? Almost certainly not. That's expensive, especially with the cost of food, all the increases recently. Like, you're not going to be able to afford to eat like that.
Exactly. And I mean, I crack up because my girlfriend like goes nuts every time she sees how much I spend on meat per week. She's like, before you, I was spending like $30 on groceries for myself. I'm like, well, we're in the triple digits, baby.
Oh man, I spent $30 20 years ago on my groceries. Jeez.
Hey, sometimes it is a little pricey, but it's worth the payoff.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. We all prioritize different things. And if that's what we prioritize, right?
Exactly.
Like I'm to say my grocery bills are a little bit more expensive, but I compensate by not eating out quite as often as other people. I still do, just not quite as often.
It's crazy how much like money you have in the bank when you're not dishing out $100 to go drinking with your friends every weekend, or twice or 3 times.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like there's always the kind of memes that capture it. You'll no problem spend $100 or more on a Saturday night. But the idea of going to the grocery store the next day and spending $100 on groceries for the week, you're like, oh, no way, that's way too expensive.
Yeah. Or the one thing that I brought up recently to my clients was like, are you willing to make the investment to throw the food away that you know is not going to satisfy your goal? Because that counts as an investment too. If there's half a bag of chips just chilling right there, you know you're going to devour. Do you have the willpower to throw it away and say, I'm willing to eat that expense?
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
For some people, yes. For other people, we need to maybe think about, okay, well, how can we integrate that food into the rest of your week? That's the other option.
Exactly. Exactly. It's all
Yeah,
trade-offs.
absolutely. Yeah. It depends on the person too. There's no right answer,
Yep. Yeah.
right?
I
It
mean,
depends
it's individual, right?
for sure.
Now,
Yeah. Like people often ask me like, what kind of way of eating do you get your clients to do? I'm like, well, really, like it comes down to the client, really. I think sure there are general things you got to probably, almost certainly everybody I work with has to eat more protein and eat more vegetables. But aside from that, like everything else is pretty different. Each clinic's very different. Yeah.
exactly. We give the answer nobody wants, where it's like, well, it depends. And then
I
people are
know.
like, damn it.
Yeah.
I wanted a black and white answer from this
I
guy, and
mean,
he's going to give me something that's actually going to apply
I
to
know.
me. Screw him.
I
Screw
think
him.
the one black and white answer I tell people is like, if you're not in a calorie deficit, you're not going to lose fat. That's pretty much the only black and white thing that I will say to anybody.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's like, there's very few laws that apply,
Mm.
and there's a
Mhm.
whole lot of nuance. But that's
Yep.
definitely one of them, which is like, if you eat too much, you will gain weight. If you don't eat enough, you will lose weight.
Yep.
And then everything else kind of depends.
Yep. And for sure, things like hormones can impact. Things like how much you can actually digest will impact that. Things like the movement that you're getting will impact the quality of food. How much protein you're eating will all impact the point at which, you know, a calorie deficit is a calorie deficit for you. Like, I don't know if you have any clients who have any kind of thyroid issues, but, you know, somebody who does have thyroid issues,
Always.
assuming that they're not medicated anyway, if they're, because I only work with clients who are medicated and are working with a doctor as well. But let's say someone with thyroid issues is not medicated. For them, a calorie deficit might be super, super low, like hundreds of calories below what we might predict, because thyroid is obviously so important at regulating your metabolic rates, your metabolism. So there are for sure things that will impact the point at which you are in a calorie deficit, but the point stands if you are absorbing more calories than you are. So if you are inputting more calories than your output is, there's going to be weight gain. Whereas if your input is less than your output, there's going to be weight loss. But you're right. There are lots of nuances. Like, to say that the total number of calories that you eat is the only thing that's important is as stupid as saying that the calorie quality is the only thing that's important. Like, both matter.
And hey,
Whenever
I've
there's
been
a need
guilty of that.
for,
I was
oh,
totally
me
all
too,
in on the
me too.
calories only train.
Absolutely. I've made all the mistakes, which is the only reason I can speak so confidently now, right? It's probably the same thing for you.
Oh, exactly.
Whenever there's like, is it this or is it that? The answer is normally a combination of both.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know that like a lot of the concepts we're talking about, they really do parallel a lot of things that like you and me work on with like business and stuff. So to transition into that, what do you think, like when it comes to consistency, we know that that's like the thing that matters, like above all else, the compliance or the science is in the compliance. What are some ways that you've used for yourself, like when it comes to business or your own fitness journey and with clients that really help people stay on track? Because I feel like for a lot of people, they're just like falling off, hopping on, falling off, hopping on.
So I find that trying to take as many decisions out of a person's day as possible is huge. So I don't want somebody to have to choose to do a workout. I wanted them to have the workout in their schedule. It's right there ready for them. They've blocked off the time. They're not going to have a meeting put in there. They're blocked off the time for that. If they need to have spoken to their partner to watch the kids at that time, cool. Okay, we need to basically make sure that there's nothing that can stop them. All they have to do is go into their gym or their home gym. Most of my clients train at home. Go into their home gym and just start the workout. No decisions made. Same thing with food. Like, pre-tracking your calories the night before or the morning of is so huge, because when you go to your kitchen, you don't have to decide what to eat. You just have to follow your plan, the plan that you already made for yourself. It's so much less effort. So those are two huge things: scheduling and pre-tracking. And you can also schedule when you're going to meal prep, when you're going to pre-track, when you're going to go for a walk, when you're going to go to the grocery store. So, you know, making sure that all of these simple habits that should be simple, but you might not have like formed quite yet, can be formed. Because by definition, a habit is something that you do without really thinking about it. Like, nobody who brushes their teeth every morning has to think about it. It's just a thing that you do. When you first start flossing, you've got to set reminders. You've got to remind yourself to do it. Okay. But like after a few weeks, if flossing is just a thing that you naturally do, the idea of like brushing your teeth and then not flossing before you go to bed, like that doesn't make any sense to you anymore because it's just a part of what you do. So minimizing decisions throughout the day, making things as easy to do as possible so that you can do them consistently is going to turn these things into habits, like things that you just do. And so that when there is a period where you are off track because you're on vacation, or it's that weird week between Christmas and New Year when nobody really does anything, getting back on track becomes just, okay, cool. These are things I have to do. And it's so much easier.
Yeah. And that also feeds into the whole, like the identity of being a fit person. Like fit people don't think I have to work out, I have to eat this way. It's just what I do.
Absolutely. And you can even take it to the next level. You can start thinking, okay, well, I get to train. How fortunate I am.
Yeah, right.
I'm healthy. I'm not in pain. I can go and train. That's awesome.
And that's
Especially if
something to
you've
be
been in
said.
pain.
There's something to be said for that, because there's a lot of people that
Yeah.
cannot say that.
Yeah. There are plenty of people who can't even go for a walk because of like various medical issues. Like, how lucky are we that we can just get up and go outside and go for a walk?
Exactly.
Who cares that it's like 10 degrees outside? Just wear layers and wear a hat. Right.
And I'll admit, I am totally guilty of doing, like, falling for that fair weather mentality where it's like, well, it's raining, I don't know if I want to go for my walk. And it's like, even the pros do struggle with stuff like this. It's not just something that's locked in and it's forever and it's easy. Yeah. It's like sometimes you do have to like kind of give yourself a kick in the ass.
You sure do. And like, I'm up in Canada. I'm up here in Nova Scotia. So
oh boy.
Yeah. So
those
when
walks are probably fun.
When it's deep into winter, it gets to -40 Celsius with the wind. Now, just to let you know how cold that is, that's the same as -40 Fahrenheit. That's how cold it gets. Like, that's where the two different things meet, right? Now, when it's like that, I ain't going outside. There's no way, okay? Because it's literally too dangerous to go outside when it's like that with the wind. So I try to think, okay, well, what can I do instead? Like, what can I do instead of going outside for a walk? Okay, cool. I'm lucky enough to live in a house with 3 stories. Okay, cool. I'm just going to walk around the house, go up and down the stairs, walk around, touch up all the points in every room. What I've got behind me right now, I have this aerobic stepper. So if I don't want to go outside to get my steps because it's pouring with rain, or we had a hurricane here the other week. Just before Florida got hit, we had a hurricane.
Really? I didn't know Canada got hurricanes.
Yeah, like nor did I before I moved here. Yeah.
Like, didn't mention this when I was signing the contract.
Yeah. So yeah, there were trees knocked down, and it was obviously dangerous to go outside. I just go up and down that stepper. Up and down, up and down. I set my timer. Okay, I'm going to do 3 minutes going left, right, and I'm going to spend another 3 minutes doing right, left, over and over again until I've got my steps. And I'm going to get it over the course of the entire day. And that's super useful if I have a very busy day with lots of calls and speaking to a lot of people, and I just don't have the time to go even for like a 10-minute walk. I'm going to go on there for like 3 to 5 minute intervals and just get it done however I need to get it done.
Yeah. And that's why, like, especially when it comes to like step goals and stuff like that, sometimes we don't have 30, 40 minutes to go for a nice long walk or anything like that. But simple habits throughout the day like that, they add up. Like, I know
100% they do. Yeah.
Yeah. I know I'm always like posting stuff about picking the furthest spot away from the grocery store, or like little stuff like that, or like intentionally going end to end at the grocery store or like Target or whatever, and just racking them up if you're not pinched for time.
Yep. And like one of my clients, she's got a great thing that she does during her workout. So she works out at home. She's got a treadmill, she's got weights, she's got a bench and everything. On her rest periods, she walks on the treadmill.
Oh, I like that.
That's genius. That's a great idea, because that you're actively recovering. You're not getting too tight in between movements. Like, that's a great idea. She'll get like 5,000 steps in a workout.
I am 100% stealing that, because like,
it's so awesome, huh?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
She that was her idea. That wasn't mine. That was completely hers.
Yeah. So for anybody that's not watching the video, I am like furiously taking notes, but that's genius. Cause I know that, like with coaches like Joe DeFranco, for example, like he's big on fillers. So like when you're not doing the active, like 1 or 2 exercises that are in your superset or your regular set, staying mentally engaged is important, because a lot of people don't want to set a timer to rest and just stand there.
Sure.
So doing
Do
low level stuff like that is incredible.
Yeah, it's so great. Yeah, and also just doing some stretching in between. That's great. I've done that with clients before who have had, if somebody has super tight shoulders, let's say, but they still want to do some kind of pressing because they want to build the chest or build the shoulders, whatever. Okay, cool. During the rest periods, we're going to do some dynamic stretches. We're going to open up those shoulders, hit that T spine, get things nice and mobilized, and then we can get back to it afterwards, giving you even a greater range of motion when you're now pressing again.
Yeah.
But yeah,
For
it's
anybody
smart to
who,
feel.
oh,
Yeah,
sorry. For anybody
go
who
ahead.
hasn't tried that, give it a go. Those stretching in between sets, each one progressively feels better. It feels
Yeah.
so good.
Absolutely. And it feels like you're not wasting time. If you are the kind of person who finds it very hard to rest, like I'm not, I find it easy to rest in between my sets. I rest way too long sometimes. I'm incredibly lazy when I don't have to be working hard. I'm super lazy.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I'm
Yeah,
literally just making tweets the whole time because the
yeah,
gym is great for creativity. You're just like, wow,
100%.
that person looks dumb doing that. I'm going to write a tweet back.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, like doing small things, because a lot of my clients, and I'm sure yours too, come from having done a lot of boot camps and HIIT classes, and like they're trying to keep the heart rate up the entire time. So for them, taking even a 60-second rest is tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. So just do something, like walk on the spot, stretch out your shoulders. It doesn't really matter what you do, but just make sure that you're doing something that isn't going to make you fatigued for when you next pick up the weights, but it's something that you feel like you're actually doing something, and getting in some more stretching in between sets. That's a great use of your time if you want to do
Yeah, but doesn't stretching reduce your gains?
that.
I know there's somebody listening to this right now that's
Yeah.
like, wait, I heard stretching is bad.
I mean, if you're going for your 1 rep max and you stretch before that, okay, maybe that's not the greatest of ideas, but who's testing their 1 rep max very often?
Yeah.
Right? Like none of us. Like I'm not. None of my clients are. I don't think I've ever. I think in my entire almost 6-year career, I think I've maybe tested out one client's 1 rep max for bench, squat, and deadlift. Just one.
Yeah. And that was
Now,
their
if you
individual goal, right? Was to do
yes,
that. You
they
don't need
wanted
to.
precisely. They just wanted to find out.
Yep.
They wanted to find out, and he and I had spent a ton of time, working on deadlift technique and squat technique, and strengthening his core, so we knew that a 1 rep max effort was going to be safe. He was definitely one of my more advanced clients that I work with, and like he deadlifted like he definitely 4 plates, so 405. He had a great deadlift, squatted. I don't even remember now, but yeah, the 4-plate deadlift was especially impressive. It was good technique. He looked great. He felt great. And yeah, that was the one time in almost 6 years working in gyms and with people that I've ever had anybody test a 1 rep max.
Yeah.
Like,
And I love how your first response was it looked great and it felt great, because that's like the sign of what coaches look for. Like the general population usually goes, okay, the bar touched the ground, the plates touched the ground, he stood up and down. Great lift. But we're looking like, did they maintain spinal integrity? Like, how do they feel afterwards? Let's dive into that a little bit, because I think a lot of people just work out for working out's sake. They don't focus so much on the real things that we should be thinking about, which is leaving feeling better, or like touching up technique. Like, what are some things that you tell your clients, like, to keep them focused on that sort of thing?
I stole this from Dan John. Do you know Dan John? Have you ever read his books?
I freaking love Dan John.
Dan John is like probably the most influential coach on me. Like, I've never obviously worked with him or anything, but his books are fantastic. If anybody has even a slight, if anybody has even a slight interest in strength training, read Never Let Go. I think it's his first book. It's fantastic.
It's so good. I got to read that.
It's been a while since I read that, actually. That was one of the first books I read, like back in 2017 when I first started training. But what he says, and this is what I tell my clients, at the end of your workout, you should feel like you could pretty much do the exact same workout again one more time. Now, that second workout was going to be way harder than the first, but you should still have the energy to do the exact same reps with the same weight again. Like, okay, maybe those final reps are going to be like a 10 out of 10 effort, whereas the first time around, they were maybe like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 effort. But if you do that, the workout's going to feel like it's about a 7 or 8 out of 10 difficulty level. You're going to leave the gym feeling that you actually have more energy and that you can be focused for the day, instead of that completely dead, drained feeling where you're just kind of numb for the rest of the day and you can't really focus on work and you can't really focus on having conversations with people.
Yeah.
So yeah, feel better when you leave than when you arrive. That's the goal. And during the workouts, I tell my clients, look, stop when you think you can do two more. Leave two in the tank every time. Now, those two, they should still be two good quality reps, but you should be finding them very, very difficult to actually maintain that good technique for those final two reps. Like, nobody needs to go to failure. Now, if you're building muscle, different story, okay? But we've got to think about like who we're talking to. I'm talking to my clients who are typically over 40, very demanding jobs, usually have kids. We're working on their stress stress management and working on their sleep habits. So if we add crushing workouts onto that, it's not going to end well.
Yep, exactly. And when it does come to building muscle too, it's all like very individual and it does depend where you're at because
It
like
does.
a
Yeah.
total beginner can come up shy like by I think the max is like 5 reps and they can still build a lot of muscle that way. Like the whole
Absolutely.
concept of going to total failure is like something that you shouldn't even really have to explore until you're maybe 5, 7 years in. Like, would
Yeah.
you agree?
Yeah. Like concentric failure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
For
concentric
sure.
failure,
Yeah.
not the forced reps or the half reps or
Yeah.
anything like that, which is
Yeah.
like, again, super experienced stuff that most people don't need to do.
No. Unless you want to be like an IFBB pro bodybuilder, then you probably don't need to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's assuming that, again, recovering enough. Like if you're having that glass of wine every night and getting 4 hours of sleep, good luck.
Yeah. Yeah. Because yeah, you're right. You will burn out. You will injure yourself. Something bad is going to happen. Yeah, I just make sure that with my clients, we typically do I don't really like my clients to work out more than 4 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
I like, when I say work, I mean strength training. If they will do some more, some zone 2 cardio in between, that's completely fine. But strength, I like to max out at 4. I don't think I've ever trained with anybody who's working out 5 days a week. And I actually prefer 3 over 4 for most people. Typically one upper body workout. So I do full body, upper body, lower body. That's typical. Sometimes I'll do 3 full body depending on the person, but typically it's full, upper, and lower.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I got everybody from between 1 and 6 days a week, but majority I'd like in that 3 to 4. Like sometimes some people do like doing 5, 6 days of push pull legs and stuff like that, which we can make it work. But if we're talking majority, like when it comes to people's time restraints and like family life and stuff, 3 to 4 makes most sense and gets you a crap ton of bang for your buck.
Absolutely. If you can train 3 days a week for the next 3 years like that, you'll be unrecognizable in how well you move, how strong you are, how much muscle you've built. Like seriously, that's super effective. And it's going to keep you feeling young as the decades go on. Just doing that, make sure you've got a good quality goblet squat. You make sure you're doing some kind of press, some kind of hip hinge, some kind of pull.
Sounded like Dan John over there.
Absolutely.
But I like how you said that. And it almost like, it seems like, at least with the people that I've talked to and everything, it seems like a lot of people have forgotten what it feels like to feel good. Like we've gotten so comfortable with like these tweaks that never go away, or feeling like your energy's at 50% on a good day. And you never really know what that like next level feels like. Like, have you seen people making that breakthrough where they're like, I could feel like this?
Yeah. It's usually after they've done CrossFit for a few years and they were always feeling beat up, always feeling like they were recovering. And they've often had to take time off due to an injury that happened because of that. No, I mean, like I've got nothing against CrossFit per se, if it's done well. CrossFit done well is great. It's actually a really good way of training, really done. But it's the quality control sometimes isn't there. This is just based on me talking to clients who have done CrossFit in both well executed gyms and not so well executed gyms. The ones who are getting people to be doing box jumps on day one. I'm like, okay, maybe we don't need to go. That's maybe not a good idea. But the ones who are sending me, well, actually, my first few weeks, they took us beginners aside. They taught us how to deadlift well. They taught us how to do a squat. They slowly gave us some like like entry level, beginner level plyometrics so that we could learn how to do that kind of thing. Like that's great. That's rich to learn the basic movements first and to make sure you get an appropriate level of strength and fitness before going into the full CrossFit workouts. That's how you do it. That is how you do it.
Yeah. And to your point, like that's a really good tell if you're in a good gym or not. Because I actually had a client who wanted to go into a CrossFit gym and I'm like, cool, which one? And she like, it was her daughter going and she's like, oh, my daughter just moved to California. I'm like, please tell me she's going to Kelly Starrett's. And I'm like, and then it turned out she did. And I'm like, oh, thank God.
Nice.
One of the few that I'm like, okay, you're in good hands. And then I asked her, I'm like, hey, what's it been like? Like, how has it been? And she's like, honestly, the first 6 to 8 weeks sucked. And I'm like, oh, did they beat you up? She's like, no, they only let me use a dowel. And like they made sure all my form was perfect. And I'm like, oh God.
Nice. That's the perfect CrossFit box, huh?
It is. And
that's how you do it. Yeah.
You see it a lot in other gyms too. Like I visited, are you familiar with Mark Fisher Fitness?
I'm not, no.
He's in New York. There's 2 locations and he's like one very, very big on the business side, but him and his business partner created one of the most recognizable gyms in New York City. And for the first 6 weeks, everybody does the exact same workout, learning the basics of every single movement, a squat, a hinge, a push, a pull. And it's like, they're just progressively getting better at the skill. It's not just, we're doing a different workout every day.
Yep. And you just use a very important word, skill, because strength is a skill. Doing all these things well is a skill. Like learning how to safely and effectively deadlift is 100% a skill. 100%. And it's a transferable skill into real life. Like an overhead press in a particular way is like learning how to, if you have tight shoulders, maybe let's not do it out here. Maybe let's bring you in a little bit, take some pressure off the joints, make things a little bit more less of an injury risk, but also actually increasing the effectiveness of the exercise at the same time. It's a skill to learn how to do these things and to figure out what your body can do and how your body is naturally built, what kinds of things you maybe formed yourself by, being hunched over at a desk for too long and how to fix that kind of thing. Thinking about, okay, is this fixable or is this just the way that I'm built? Like I know for me, I'm pretty sure that I am not built for a conventional deadlift. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't look good. And I can do all the hip mobility and all these hamstring mobility stuff you want me to do. I'm not going to look or feel good doing a conventional deadlift. But a rack pull, I feel great. A sumo deadlift, I feel great. So I know I'm just not going to do conventional. Done. I'm fine.
Is it a hinge? Does it look like a hinge? Does it smell like a hinge? Good. It's a hinge. Do it.
Precisely. Yeah, precisely. Yeah. So, and it's learning how to hinge and learning also, as you said, like you're not going to start a beginner with a kettlebell swing. You're going to have them start with me with like a kettlebell deadlift, maybe off a platform to reduce the range of motion. Having them learn, okay, what exactly is a hinge? How do you hinge? What's the difference between a squat and a hinge?
Yeah, and that's a good way. You just made me think of something. That is a very good way to tell if the person, the trainer or the coach you're working with has ever worked with people in person. Look at how they teach a hinge.
Yes.
Because nobody ever makes that mental connection on day one, ever.
No. Hinges are really tough. Like we had at a gym, we had a kettlebell instructor come to give us trainers like a 2-day kettlebell course over the weekend. Fantastic guy. Jason C. Brown. It's a really great kettlebell instructor.
I think I've seen his stuff. He's written for T Nation and everything, right?
I'm not sure. He may have done. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
I think Iron Kimono is his Instagram handle.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of a different one then.
Maybe there's a couple of Jason Browns in the industry.
I got to check him out.
And we were looking around and he was identifying, a bunch of us trainers, not me, but some other trainers. Fortunately, I'd actually figured out what a hinge was by that time, weren't really hinging when they're doing their kettlebell swing. They were more like a stiff leg Romanian deadlift kind of thing they were doing, which is fine. You can do that kind of thing, but
a little more RKC-ish.
Yes, yeah, but yes, their swings looked like squats pretty much, yeah. Which is again,
you're saying the other end of the spectrum, like it was like squatty.
Well, there were both ends of the spectrum. There was one where it's basically their legs were staying straight, and then others who were basically squatting
Mm,
their swing. And I think it was, not so much I didn't understand that a swing is a hinge. It's because sorry, it wasn't so much they couldn't hinge. It was learning that a swing is a hinge
yeah, making
and
the
not having
mental
made that
connection.
connection. Yes, like a kettlebell swing is such an advanced movement to do well. Anything that's explosive, first of all, that's not in my list of exercises for like my day one beginners. Like just like a box
No.
jump, that's explosive. Like we're not going to be doing that for many weeks, if at all. Um, a kettlebell swing, yeah, once you can perform like a regular RDL, whether with a kettlebell or with some dumbbells, and then you can show you've got a good sumo deadlift, and maybe we can do some barbell RDLs and you look good with those kinds of things. Sure, maybe week 12, maybe we'll start looking at swings.
Yeah, it's not one of those things you can do in 30 days and figure it out. It's like you
Definitely
need
not.
you need a foundation. And I know we had like not a problem, but like when I was at the gym that I used to work at, when I first started there, people were all having these issues with their lower back and we're like, what the hell is the problem? And we had
Mm,
swinging in there really frequently because there was a lot of RKC influence on what we were doing. And when you swing at a low level and you don't have the prerequisite core strength or like motion down,
yep.
it can jack
Yep.
you up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And core strength, that's the key thing, huh?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
so many
It all
people
comes
just think
back to the
about,
core.
yeah, like we don't, most of us, as whether, before we started getting into fitness, we didn't realize that, oh, the core is not just like about having abs. The core is that connection between the lower and the upper body. And if the core isn't appropriately developed, then how are we going to transfer power? How are we going to be able to do things safely? Like the
Mm-hmm.
core is everything. The core keeps you stable when you're moving. When you are doing any kind of sport, like pretty much every sport involves moving side to side, twisting and turning. What do you think is meant to be there keeping you stable while you're doing these fairly complex movements? It's the core. You want,
Exactly.
like when you're running, you need core stability. You need to be able to have a lot of rotary stability so that when you are running, and you running is basically rotating left, right. That's what running basically is. It's like rotation over and over again. Not a full rotation, obviously, just partial
Yeah.
rotations. But your core is keeping you stable as you're doing that. And I don't know if you ever do any kind of movement assessment on your newer clients.
Mm-hmm. We do like
Looking at
like a adapted version of the FMS.
exactly what I do
Yeah.
over Zoom as well. Yeah, for sure. So the rotary stability test, like how many people pass that one? It's like no,
Next to none.
no one, right? No one. Even people who are, guys who are very gym strong, lifting heavy weights, they're pressing a lot, they're doing a bunch of chin-ups. You assess their rotary stability. If they've never actually done anything to address that, like simple bird dogs, for example, or like a
Yep.
Pallof press. If they're not in the habit of doing that kind of thing, like you think, oh wow, they have like no rotary stability, absolutely none.
Sorry,
And
my
then
my Google Home just like turned on. That was creepy. Maybe you said something loud enough where it like caught it.
maybe,
But how
yeah.
you were
The
saying
way
with
the
the
way that
rotary stability,
yeah,
I like completely tossed it out. I'm like, I don't even need to screen for this because I know you need it. So
yeah,
like every
yeah,
client's like dead bugs again, leg lowers again, bear
yeah,
crawls. Yes.
yeah. Absolutely. And then the way I explain it to people is you'll find guys who are very gym strong, lat pull down a ton, pressing a ton. They've got really large muscles, but then let's say they're at home, they want to move the TV from here to over here. They pick it up, it's a light TV, and they twist and they throw the back up because they're not used to rotating under load.
I did that in my early 20s and I'm like, there's something off here. Like
Yeah,
there's no way that this should
yeah,
be happening.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah. Like some like,
there's like that
go ahead.
functional strength thing where it's like, yeah, you're good in the gym, but can you actually do life? Like, can you actually like
Sure.
transition to life stuff? My uncle would rip on me. He's like, oh, you got those show muscles, but I bet I could still kick your ass. And I'm like, you probably could.
Yeah. And it's funny to make your training functional, you don't have to do a ton of stuff really. You want to throw in a couple of Pallof presses to make sure you've got the rotary stability. Do some kind of thing in the frontal plane, which means going from side to side. So as long as you're moving side to side and you're doing something that's an anti-rotational movement, like like a bear crawl, like a Pallof press, like a bird dog, any of those kinds of things. Just throw those in, and your training essentially becomes a lot more functional, because functional training has been a bit oversold, let's say, the
It's
last
been
few years.
butchered by a lot of people that don't really get the concept that well.
Yeah, it just means move in the frontal plane side to side a little bit, do some anti-rotational work, so that when you do have to twist and turn, you got a good chance of being stable and like moving quickly. Think about, like, every sport is rotational: tennis, golf, running, soccer. The only sport I came up with that wasn't anti-rotational was rowing.
Yeah, because
That's if you have an oar in each hand. If you have an oar in one hand, then it is rotational. But assuming that you have
if you have to course correct and over paddle on one side, then boom, you're rotated right there.
Exactly.
So there's really no situation where you're never rotating.
Exactly. Yeah. Every single, like a lot of my clients like to play tennis. My older guy clients who I've worked with like to play golf. So we've thrown some rotary stability into their programming, and then their golf game suddenly takes off.
Yeah, they're hitting you with that message like, I put 20 yards on my drive.
Yeah.
Yep, that tends to happen.
There you go. Yeah. So functional training, just basically means like doing things in the different planes of motion in which humans can move, which is basically, the sagittal plane, which is up and down, backwards and forwards. Then there's a frontal plane, which means basically moving side to side. And then there's the transverse plane, which means rotation. Yep. That's all it is. But doing things, and you don't even have to do those as part of your main exercises. Yep. As long as in your warm-up you're doing some kind of, like, let's say you don't want to do anything side to side because you don't feel comfortable holding your weight and doing a heavy lateral lunge or whatever. Well, just do some like side step side to side in your warm up, and you're pretty much covered for that workout. You've moved in the frontal plane. You've practiced moving side to side, and sure, in the future it would be useful probably to like have something with a lat load in the frontal plane, like a lateral lunge or a lateral squat or a lateral step up. But when you're first starting out, just doing some some hops from side to side, that's probably good enough when you're first starting out.
To your point before, how you were saying like adjusting for like overhead positioning, you don't have to force yourself into pressing overhead because some person on Instagram said, what are you going to do when you pick something off from the shelf? It's like,
exactly.
If you want, what you could do is incorporate it in the warm up, like just get comfortable with being there. Like how many times are you going to pick something up that's truly that heavy where you need to progressively overload in that spot?
It's super
not
rare.
very often. And when you do get to that point, I know at least people we work with, they got young kids, make them do it.
Yeah.
You got the sons and daughters for that. Let them take care of the heavy crap.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very true. I think the only one situation I could think of where that would be useful, and again, it's not even a truly directly overhead press. It's like up and forward. It's when you're putting your bag in the overhead compartment on a plane. But you're not doing it you're not just pushing up, you're pushing forward and up, which doesn't require anywhere near as much shoulder mobility as like a direct overhead press.
But it does require a lot of core strength.
It sure does.
And we circle back. It all comes back to the core.
100%.
Sorry to cut you off. Where were you going with that? With the putting stuff overhead?
Oh, yeah, just like, it's useful in that case to have some level of like, not even overhead press, things like a landmine press, which is somebody who has tight shoulders. Like, as you're familiar with the FMS. Tight shoulders means don't do things that are heavy overhead. But a landmine press, which isn't directly overhead, you're pushing forward and up. Most people, even with the tightest of shoulders, can handle that. There's way less internal rotation. And so, or like way less forcing themselves into like external rotation where they just can't get into it, with like a standard shoulder press like this. But we bring the elbow in, things feel a lot safer, things feel a lot less painful. Because someone who has tight shoulders trying to overhead press, that can actually hurt them. It can actually like cause pain.
Yeah,
like things absolutely. Like a landmine press.
We've all done it where we flare the elbows out for years, and we're like always doing that rotation, this arm circles every time you go into the gym.
Yeah, but like a landmine.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say a landmine press is basically practicing putting that luggage in the overhead compartment. It's pretty much the exact same movement.
Hey, for most of the people that we work with, like that 40 plus population, I'll take a
Mhm.
landmine press or like a downward dog style push up over an overhead press every day of the week.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a good
yeah.
like for life right there. Like if you want to like get good at pushing away and raising your arm up, like you're reaching
Mm,
for something, those are going to
yeah,
give you way more bang for your buck.
for sure. And yeah, when I do program over an overhead press, it's pretty much always okay. You're going to set the bench to the last but one incline. So you're going to still be slightly reclined and you're not going to be out here. We're going to bring your elbows into an almost neutral grip. And nobody I've worked with has told me that that's painful. Whereas
Yep.
plenty of people have said to me, yeah, this kind of movement just doesn't feel good.
Yeah. And the people that can overhead press over and over again without pain are usually arching the crap out of their back. So they're creating that angle anyway.
It's like a fake mobility, pretty much, right?
Yeah. And I mean, to each
Yeah,
their own. If you're creating the angle, it
sure.
doesn't hurt, go for it. But like,
Yes, yeah.
but, but,
That's the real key.
but you're
If you're
losing.
pain free,
Yeah.
I
Oh, go ahead.
was going to say if you're pain free, you're probably fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
General rule of strength training, yeah.
And if you want to get into the nuance of it, the only thing I could see being a downside of doing that is the fact that you're not flattening your back out into the bench, which would help integrate the core and keep it tight, which is what you want to
Absolutely.
get good at.
Yep, yep.
But
Agreed. You're
it's
basically
new.
you're loading your lumbar spine pretty much. You're loading your lower back, which you don't want to do too often.
No, you want to find those
Yeah,
variations. Like more times than not, the variations you can find with a flat back are going to treat you a lot better in the long run.
for sure, for sure.
And yeah. But we just went off and got all real nerdy on exercise stuff. I'd like to let's bring it back to the
Sure.
nutrition side, since that
Yeah.
seems to be like
Sure.
where most people need the most help. Like let's be honest, you can show up to the gym and do the world's dumbest workout, but if the food's right, you'll lose weight and you'll still look pretty good.
1,000%.
And that's pretty much
1,000%.
every
Yeah.
influencer you see right now is doing precisely that, starving themselves and doing really dumb workouts. So it's
Yeah.
possible.
It's possible, yeah, for sure. But if I feel like with our clientele, it's nutrition side of things. That's the hard part. Going to do the workouts is usually not the problem. Getting the steps, we can work together to figure out, okay, here's 10 minutes. Let's look at your schedule on this. Okay, here's another 7 minutes, and here's another 20 minutes. We can figure that out. But it's consistency with the nutrition, which is the toughest part. And I'm completely with you there. So where do you find your clients struggle most with nutrition?
My clients, I think the big struggle usually is incorporating the whole foods, because let's be honest, when you go out to dinner, like
Mhm.
for one, it's really hard to turn down the really tasty stuff. Number two, that social pressure of like, come on, you want a little bit, live a little, or like they go to like family get-togethers and stuff. So like the pressure from like me as a coach saying, let's get some more nutritious food in there, and then pressure from other people saying, no, come on. That
Yeah.
seems to be a big thing. Do you see that with your clients too?
Yeah. Especially the weekend element. Weekends are the biggest. Those are the toughest for sure.
Yeah.
So the kind of things that I recommend to my clients is, first of all, okay, cool. On weekends, one or both days, go up to maintenance. Increase calories up to maintenance. Even if you go into a slight surplus, as long as we're on track those other 5 days, you're going to see results. You're going to see results slower, but that's fine because you get to live your life and you get to get results at the same time. So that's step one. Something else that takes some of the pressure off on the weekends is kind of really thinking about, okay, where can you still be consistent on the weekend? Do we have to write off the entire 6 meals from Saturday breakfast until Sunday dinner? Do we have to write off every single meal? Or are there really only maybe 1, maybe 2 meals, maybe 3 maximum? But it's not every meal. It's almost never every meal, unless there's a weekend trip, then that's different. But, a regular weekend, it's not every meal. Most of my clients can be consistent with their breakfast on the weekend once we have a conversation and we kind of try to identify where the issues are. And what I tell my clients usually for, like, let's say Saturday night, they want to go out with friends and family, cool. Okay, order what you want. Try to make it as like protein based and as veggie based as possible. That's cool. But what I want you to try doing, and this works with some people, not with everybody, but it works with a lot of people, is just slow the fuck down when you're eating. Like
Yep.
slow down. Try to eat literally at half speed. Like take smaller bites. Chew your food more frequently. Um,
Milk that
you,
drink. Like take your time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like just really try to like give your brain as much time to figure out when you've had enough. And at the point where your brain is telling you, hey, you know what? We're good. We're not hungry anymore. Beyond that point, you're just eating for the sake of eating. At
Yeah.
that point, good point to stop. Put the
Yeah.
fork down.
And that
And
was one of my favorite habits, like learning from like guys like you said, like Jordan Syatt. He's like, put your fork down between bites. And I'm like,
yeah,
all right, I'm going to give this a go before I tell clients to do it. And I couldn't believe how simple it was and how effective it was, because I'm a speed eater. I'll knock it out in five
sure.
minutes. It
Yeah.
turned it into a 15-minute meal. And it's like, oh, now my brain actually is getting that signal. And then
And you feel
clients found it
satisfied.
easy too.
Yeah. Something that I have told clients, because this actually works for me, especially when I'm eating something that's not very calorie dense, like a salad, for example. Use chopsticks. Use chopsticks,
That would
especially
drive
if you
me
suck at
freaking
using
nuts.
chopsticks. Well, I lived in Korea for a couple of years, so I'm like pretty good at chopsticks now. But
Okay.
if you could, even if you're good at chopsticks, you're going to be eating slower. You just can't pick up as much food at any one time. So that's a handy thing. And
I
you
like
touched
that.
on alcohol as well. You touched
Mhm.
on alcohol. I tell my clients, look, you can drink while you're losing weight, but you can't drink as much as you want. It's just a sacrifice that you're going to have to make. That's where I am, not completely black and white, but I'm kind of more toward the black and the white. Let's say, like, we
Mhm.
are going to have to, for sure, make a decision here. Um, and I tell my clients, look, a couple of things. First of all, think about the calories. And for most people, that means maybe having 2 drinks. But it also means thinking about the alcohol's effect on your appetite, because there's a certain number of drinks for most of us where after that appetite just goes through the roof. So for me, that's 3 drinks. 3 drinks and my appetite is all the way up here. So I stop at 2. Keep it really simple. I stop, pretty far beyond, before that point. For other clients, it might be 1. But we also have to think about the effect of alcohol on sleep. Now, I don't want people to think that I'm anti-alcohol, because I'm really not.
Yeah.
But
But I like where you're going with this, because I was
yeah,
actually going to ask, but I
because
won't
if
stop
you're
you.
having if you're having like 3 or 4 drinks, and it's funny, have you ever looked up, like, or have you recently looked at the government guidelines for alcohol?
No, but that would be very interesting. I definitely got to
Yeah.
check it out.
Okay, so for women, 4 drinks is considered binge drinking. I believe that's the number. 4 drinks is considered binge drinking. Like, that's not many.
Yeah, that's not that many.
And
I I know, like how you were saying, like back in university, I know some people that could do that in an hour.
oh, easy.
Yeah,
Oh, easy for sure. Like 10, 15 drinks in an evening, that was no problem at one
easy.
point. Yeah. And then you realize, oh, the government guidelines for men, I believe, and you should definitely look this up. So don't quote me on this, but I think for men, it's if you're going to be drinking every day, it's like no more than 2 drinks a day. So maximum 14 drinks in a week.
Hmm.
More than that, you're a heavy drinker. And I come from England, and we have a very heavy pub culture in England. Like, how many people are doing 14 drinks just over the course of 2 nights?
I was going to say one night.
One night,
Like
even.
there
Yeah.
are people that do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, what is considered like a moderate alcohol intake is way lower than most people think.
Yeah.
Um, and the data show the effects of heavy drinking. They're not good in the long term. Like, heavy drinking, if you want to age faster, that's a great way of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Smoking and drinking is the quickest way to take years
yeah,
off.
absolutely, for sure. And
And
so
I
going back
mean,
to,
oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
just real quick, because my girlfriend is a internal medicine doctor, and she sees like the
Mm.
effects of this stuff every day. She literally
Yeah.
had somebody in their 30s dying of liver failure.
Oh,
Like,
jeez.
to drink that much, like it takes a lot. Like
Yeah.
it's a big problem. And I mean, like, even how you said this binge drinking stuff, like when we're hitting that point, it is concerning, and we do got to
Yeah.
like manage that.
Mm.
Not just so much for like better sleep and all that, but just like living life. Like we want to be around
Yeah.
for the kids, grandkids, and all that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so obviously, we're trainers. We're not going to start telling people, like, the specifics about alcohol and recommending anything. I don't recommend alcohol I try not to give numbers to people. I try to have my clients come up with their own numbers, and then I can just relay the information that I found from the government websites so that they have all the information to hand.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a little bit beyond our scope to start talking about like the health impacts of certain things. I can just tell you what I've read on the government websites, which anybody can access.
And I mean, let's be honest, we're not saying anything that people don't already know. Like, we know drinking a lot is not good. Eating too much is not good. And that's our job, is to like simplify and make it actionable and create steps so people can do it.
Absolutely, for sure. And to bring it more toward like a weight loss and a fat loss perspective, over drinking, like drinking too much on a Saturday night, like how bad are you going to feel on Sunday? And so therefore, how difficult is it going to feel for you on that Sunday to make the optimum food choices, to choose to go for a walk, to choose to do a workout if you had a workout schedule? Like, how difficult is that going to be on that Sunday?
We all know that's Chinese food day.
Yeah, you basically, you've turned one meal into 2.5 days, or a day and a half, and potentially even more if Sunday is the day that you normally grocery shop and you don't do it, and so you don't even have the food in your house to be able to get back on track.
And in the States, we got Sunday football, so it goes right into that. Beer, pizza, it just is like a vicious cycle.
Yeah. So you could easily turn one Saturday evening night out into 2.5, 3 days off track.
Yeah.
Just from having not quite had, having a little bit too much alcohol, not quite getting enough sleep, not having planned to go to the grocery store at a better time where you knew you could definitely go. Because a lot of people go shopping on a Sunday, grocery store shopping on a Sunday. And how many people listening to this have like missed at least 1 or 2 Sunday grocery days and have therefore had a couple of days off track in the last few months? I've been in quite a few, right?
Exactly.
Happened to me quite a lot. It used to happen to me quite a lot, for sure.
And one thing that helps is just multiplying the decisions you're making now over the course of the year. So like you said, 2-3 days, take 3 days, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every single week for a year. That's what, 3 times 52 weeks. So over 150 days wasted, or not even wasted, working against you.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's almost half the year.
Yeah.
That's almost half the year. Like basically, being off track, eating and drinking too much.
Yep.
And like you could work as hard as you want Monday through Thursday. You can work as hard as you want. You can eat as many vegetables as you want. But if there are too many days in a row too consistently where you are not on track, things not going to go well for you in terms of weight loss, in terms of health, and all other kinds of stuff.
Yeah, but it's like that old saying: we are what we repeatedly do.
For sure.
And I don't want to eat up too much of your time because I want to be respectful of it. How much time are you working with now? I want to make sure that we don't go over.
I think I've got a call at 4:30 and it's 2:00 here now, so I'm good.
Okay. Yeah. So before we get into the last thing that I go over with every single guest we have on, is there anything when it comes to nutrition, fitness, that you're just like, I just wish I could scream this from the frickin' mountaintop and tell everybody?
Something that has grown increasingly apparent to me over my career is the importance of stress management on your results, not just for recovery, but for not stress eating, for being able to get enough sleep. It seems like stress management and sleep are the foundational habits for everything. I used to say it was just sleep, and that is obviously very important, but stress management, I'm learning more and more, is just as important, because if you're feeling stressed, and you've had a stressful day at work and you don't have any tools for managing that stress, what's your evening going to look like? How likely are you to eat like a high protein, high veggie dinner and, go for a walk after dinner? Or just sit on the couch watching Netflix and order some Uber Eats, like if you're feeling really, really stressed? Because let's be honest, like the latter situation, the Uber Eats and the Netflix, will for sure reduce your stress, okay? But it's also going to lead to other stuff that isn't good for you. It's going to probably lead to some weight gain. It's going to lead you to working out less. It's going to lead to, in the long term, like a negative health outcome. So even though in the moment, stress eating or whatever other kind of stress binging TV is going to help you in the moment, that habit is not in line with your goals if you're listening to this podcast, I assume.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A
Pretty
lot of
much.
people just don't care about
Yeah.
it, right? But like everybody who's listening to this probably wants to improve their fitness, improve their nutrition, maybe lose some body fat, that's a goal, maybe build some muscle. But you need to be able to manage stress. And that stress management doesn't have to be things like meditation or deep breathing. I'm into that kind of thing, but a lot of people aren't. Okay. I don't even do it a ton. I think I do deep breathing for about 2 minutes a day, and I meditate for about 10 minutes a day. And I don't even do it every day. There are sometimes I miss, sometimes I go weeks and weeks and weeks doing it. Other times I'll be off for a month. But generally speaking, I do it fairly consistently enough for me anyway. But a lot of people don't like that. So what's really great for stress is going for a walk. Just something literally that simple. Just anything that that requires you to move in some way or to focus on the present in some way, without kind of like trying to numb yourself, like with Netflix or with food, for example. But yeah, stress management is so important. So I would say that if you have a full-time job and you have kids, and there are other stresses in your life and other responsibilities in your life, like pet or sick family or something, you owe it to yourself to come up with some way of managing that stress. And you're not going to be able to eliminate stress. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is find a thing that's going to help you deal with the situation better in the moment. That might be going for walks, it might be meditation, it might be deep breathing, like yoga, it could be anything. Just find something that you can do to help with stress management.
Yep. And to your point, doesn't have to eat up your whole day. I mean,
Absolutely
doesn't
not.
have to be an hour-long meditation practice. 5 minutes in the morning can make your day incredibly much. Like the difference is insane.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not just its impact on how you get things done throughout the day. It can impact how well you sleep. It can actually impact how well you recover if your
Yeah.
stress is low. You can recover a little bit faster. You're not going to feel quite as beat up if you're training and you're trying to get through an injury. Managing that stress is so important. And like I don't see it often enough on social media.
Yeah. It's definitely forgotten because I think a lot of people just are not knowledgeable in that aspect. I know I sure as hell am not as knowledgeable as I want to be in that section, in that
Nor am I.
sector. And
Yeah.
but that's where we should be. We should never feel like we know enough. um,
Yeah.
but I totally agree because like so many people are caught up on the exercise, the nutrition plan, the protocols, the meal plans, and it's like you got to start at square one, which is like, and this is completely anecdotal. Like there's probably science to back it up, but I don't know about it. um,
Mhm.
in the people that I've worked with, like I noticed the trend of the people that were stressed out the most, the ones that had a crazy life at home, had a job
Yeah.
that they really did not like, and just were generally like always tense. They always had the hardest time losing body fat in the spots that they wanted it to go, because those are the stress spots, the low, like the pouch, the legs.
If stress is high enough for long enough, sure, it can impact where you're storing fat. Absolutely, yeah, I've read that too. I think you have to be pretty damn stressed for a pretty damn long time, but some people are.
Some people are, yeah.
Some
I
people
mean,
are.
I work like where I was is like maybe an hour outside of New York. So you had all these people that would like take the train and all this crap, and they just like
Yeah.
would be high stress all day. And it's like, Jesus, I don't know how you guys live like that.
Oh, of course, I kind of forgot about the commute aspect of things too. You've got the commute to work, you've got the stressful job, you've got people texting you from your family and from like other stuff, and you've got the commute home that you're going to deal with stuff when you get home as well. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like all that stuff can make things even worse. So yeah, like it sounds like some kind of stress management while you're commuting to and back from work might be a good idea, huh?
Exactly. And we wake up at this stuff, like it's like we get that
Yeah.
brief moment in time when you wake up where nothing's in your head, and then it hits you like a ton of bricks. And then that's where the meditation comes in, where it's like you can
Yeah.
sort all of that stuff out instead of holding on to like, I don't know how I feel about this, I'm just angry or stressed, is like you can think about it and sort it out before your day
Yeah.
begins.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And even like something, if somebody doesn't want to meditate, each evening just write down your to-do list for the next day. Just write it down so it's not in your head.
Yep.
Let your brain rest easier at night, so you don't having to worry about, I hope I don't forget this, I hope I don't forget that. Pen and paper by your bed, write your shit down, and then just try to relax and stop using your fucking phone in bed as well. For fuck's sake.
Please, for the love of God, people, ditch your phone in bed.
Yeah, that's like, well, that's the one thing that like really, whatever client I have, like that's a question I always ask: do you use your phone in bed? And if sleep is bad, they almost pretty much always are.
Yep.
So that's the first simple switch that I might make. Okay, cool. Let's use the phone in the living room. When you're in bed, let's get a book.
Not a
Simple
Kindle.
switch.
Not a Kindle.
It's Kindle's probably it's an improvement over the phone, but it's
Yeah.
not my preferred choice for
It's
sure.
a midway point, but it's still blue light.
Yeah, I would rather have that book.
Yep. Yep. Or even like an audiobook sometimes helps too. Like if you do have your phone and you need it for an alarm and you don't have an alarm clock, pop some headphones in, or if you and your wife or husband or whatever want to listen to the same book, you'll dial down way faster than looking at TikTok or Instagram,
100%,
even though you should check out our pages before bed, but I'm not going to.
Don't check out my page before bed. I don't want to be part of the problem. check out my page during the day, huh? When you're meant to be doing some work, check out my page. That's fine by me.
Yeah. I'm much more preferable of people checking at when they're at work, supposed to be doing work, but they're not. I'd rather you do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, awesome. I can't believe how many gems we've gone over this whole podcast. Like this has to have been the most packed one that I've had so far.
Well, that's all. Well, that's great. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. Yes. And I hope everybody listening got at least one or two things that they're like, okay, I could do that right now. So like, as people are listening right now, just think of those one or two things where you're just like, I'm going to start doing that today. And now, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, that's what I do like to help my clients with. Like, I don't want to tell people, okay, we're going to build you up to doing this very complex hour-long task you're going to do every day. I tell them, okay, what can you do right now? Can you go for a 5-minute walk now? Can you drink an extra glass of water per day? Can you do something small? Like, what can you actually do? Can you download the Oak meditation app? That's my favorite app, by the way. It's a free app on iPhone called Oak, O-A-K.
Okay. I'll really like the show notes.
It's a free app. It's iPhone only. If you're not on iPhone, I don't know what to say. I'm just sorry. Just get an iPhone or something.
Those people better not be listening to this podcast. This is an Apple only podcast.
If you have an iPad, I think you can download it onto there. But anyway, they've got a bunch of guided meditations. I really like their deep, calm breathing exercise. Have you ever heard of 4-7-8 breathing?
Honestly, I've heard every number under the sun when it comes to breathing.
Cool. So 4-7-8 is there's like this box breathing, which is like 4-4, or I think I've thought of like 4-8-8 or something.
I think box is 4-4-4-4, where it's like in pause, out pause.
Precisely. Yeah. So 4-7-8 breathing is inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. So that was invented by Andrew Weil. That's like a psychologist. It's so good for like reducing anxiety and stress in the moment. It's not a cure for those things. It's just how to get children in them. So what I like to do that every day before I meditate, I just use their 10-minute guided meditation on the Oak meditation app as well. I think, have you ever heard of Kevin Rose? He's the founder of Dig. He does some podcasts with Tim Ferriss every now and then. I think he was involved. Okay. Yeah, I think he was involved in the creation of this app, I believe. So I do 4-7-8 breathing, just sitting on my couch or on a chair, and then I immediately go and do the 10 minutes of meditation. That's my current habit. But if I can't do the meditation, I'll make time for the 4-7-8, because it's literally 1 minute and 54 seconds. And nobody has not got 1 minute and 54 seconds.
Yep.
To sit down and do some deep breathing.
Yep. I mean, that can make or break somebody's day. It really can.
Yeah.
And I like doing that in bed too. Cause if you're having trouble, counting sheep just isn't doing the job. Some breathing techniques as you're lying in bed, just kind of drift out, and it feels so good.
Yeah. 100%. So I'll do it in bed. I'll do it on a chair, do it on my couch. I will never, ever do it in the bath or a swimming pool because of the risk of passing out. So deep breathing and water is a bad combination. Yeah. So I will never do that. Yeah. That's not happening.
Yeah, no, I'll test it out for anybody that wants to know what happens, but we're not recommending it.
No, please don't do that.
I'll be the guinea pig. Don't worry. Awesome. Awesome. Now, this is probably, like I said, the most important part of
Hmm.
the podcast. This is like the tell of, should we even listen to anything this guy just said? Like, can we trust him? And that big question is, what is your favorite movie and why?
That's a great question, man. Favorite movie. I have a lot of favorites. I kind of my current favorite keeps switching. Um, Obviously, you've got the great movies like The Godfather, which it's like, but that's like everybody's favorite movie.
Yeah.
Um,
That's like almost untouchable for me. I don't have the time to devote to all of them, so I haven't watched a single one yet. But one weekend, gonna knock them all out.
One movie though that kind of like stands out more than others. No, I've got two. I got two. Okay, so there's one called In Bruges. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
Okay, no.
In Bruges. Okay, so that stars Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson.
I'm sold.
Right. So there are a couple of hitmen hiding out in Bruges, and you don't know why they're there, but everything is slowly revealed over the course of the movie. It's such a well written and well acted movie. It's amazing. Like, it's like such a great story.
All right.
You know how when you watch a movie and you think, wow, this part which kind of seemed like, why were they saying that before? Okay, now this makes complete sense. This kind of ties in with this later on. It's such a great movie.
Yeah.
So entertaining.
Okay.
And like, it's Colin Farrell is like a little kid, and like Brendan Gleeson's like the father figure, because Bruges is like an old medieval city, and so the kid hates it, and like Brendan Gleeson just like loves it. It's great. It's such a great movie. So In Bruges. And then another one that I really liked recently was The Death of Stalin.
Okay.
Which
that one I saw. Never got. I didn't see it, watch it, but I saw, and I'm like, that looks interesting. Never got around to it though.
Yeah. So that's a great movie because it's completely absurd. And you think, well, there's no way anybody would be acting like that in a situation. But I'm pretty sure that they actually were. It just shows how insane the USSR was. It's like a dark comedy.
Okay. So is it kind of like Jojo Rabbit?
Kind of.
Okay.
Kind of, yeah, kind of like that. And what's great is that all of the actors, they're either British or American. It's obviously set in Russia, but they all use their own accents, which seems weird at first to have like some like guy from like some Cockney guy from London and some American guy, and then some guy from the north of England, like all acting in this. Wait, this is Russian though. But then you realize, oh, in here there were so many countries that actually made up the USSR. They'd have all had completely different accents. So from that perspective, it's actually pretty interesting too. But it's just the absurdity of, and also I guess the tragedy too of like how the USSR actually came to be, and like when Stalin died, how people were acting and what kind of place it was to live in. It's a very, very dark but very funny movie.
Those are my favorites.
Yeah. In Bruges as well, dark comedy.
Okay. Because I feel like that's almost like a character trait. Like if you can sit through and truly enjoy a dark comedy, we can be friends.
That's great. How about you? Do you have like a favorite movie?
I tell everybody the same thing. Braveheart's my number one because it's just got everything. I mean, not a fan of Mel Gibson as a person, but as an actor, love his movies.
Yeah, I've not seen that in years. I think like 20 years. I think I've not seen that. But
that's like one of those that's it's always on TBS or TNT or something. And when it's on, I'm just like, I gotta watch it.
It's, you know what, Gladiator is another one like that that I'll watch. That's another great one.
Yep, that's a classic. It's like that's one of those that you just have to. You can't scroll past it.
No, at least you want to watch a couple of scenes, then you'll move on.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're into horror, but like I just came across, because I'm like one of those guys that got caught up in like the Conjuring series and all of that and loved it.
I never saw that. Okay.
Well, if you like horror and jump scares, that's kind of like that. That's their thing with James Wan. But I'm like, I need some other horror stuff, and came across Ty West with Pearl. He just came out with, and before that it was X. Those are really, really good if you're into the horror stuff.
Okay. I'm not so into the horror. I do like a good like zombie movie though.
Oh, you're more of the zombie crew. Okay.
Zombie, but also Did you ever see Shaun of the Dead?
That's the second time I'm hearing that movie today. I literally
Oh,
just heard
okay.
Tim Ferriss talking about it because it at the end of Obstacle is the Way audiobook, they put
Sure.
their podcast in, and he mentioned it,
Sure.
and he's like, "You got to watch it; it'll change your life." I'm like, "All
Shaun of
right,
the Dead is hilarious.
I
It's
gotta watch it."
hilarious, and it's also pretty damn terrifying at some points.
And that's Sean Shaun, right?
Yes,
Shaun of the Dead. It's
I think.
happening.
Yeah. That was Simon Pegg before he became like very, very famous with the Mission Impossible movies and all that kind of thing. So it's one of his earlier things, but yeah, he nailed that movie. I think he co-wrote it as well.
Oh, okay. That
Yeah.
honestly, that seems like a trend. Like when something's really good, usually the actor had some sort of a writing role or a producing role more times than not.
Yeah. Pretty often, yeah.
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 That's always a
Absolutely.
good tell. And it's always a good
Even,
tell if the right actors are in it. Like when you said Colin
yes.
Farrell for In Rouge or In Bruges, I'm just like, Colin Farrell's one of those guys. I'm like, he doesn't take a bad script usually. So 9 times out of 10, it's going to be really good.
He's done some good movies actually.
Yeah.
Like he was great in was it The Gentleman, the most
Yeah.
recent Guy Ritchie movie? He was good in that.
And
Even the Phone
Batman.
Booth.
Did
I
you
didn't
see
see the
Batman?
Batman. I
He
didn't
was
see the Batman.
he was Penguin and he had a crap ton of makeup done. And I didn't even know it was him until I checked the cast
Oh,
after.
okay.
He
Oh,
was like, I tell everybody with Batman, the new one with Robert Pattinson,
mhm.
it is loaded with so many good actors and such good acting if you cancel out Robert Pattinson. Like if you don't focus on Batman, everybody else is so good in it.
Oh yeah, because isn't Andy Serkis, doesn't he play
Yeah.
the butler?
Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep. So
Okay,
that's a recommendation. Batman,
okay.
HBO Max.
I've got it. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Add it to the list.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome.
Great.
Well, I think that's a good place to call it
Cool.
because I don't want this to be too much information overload for everybody listening. You got the exercise, you got the nutrition, you got your movie recommendations. I'd say that makes for a pretty full podcast. So thank you so much for coming on. And
no,
would
thanks
you
for
like
inviting me, Brian. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. Where can the people find you? Where can they connect with you and check out your stuff?
I'm most active on Instagram. Instagram is like the place where I post. I'm actually, if anybody wants to watch me lose weight live, I'm documenting a fat loss journey right now. I think it's day Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I think it's day 5 right now. So I've literally just started. So my Instagram story, I'm doing my daily weighing. I'm explaining why the weight is fluctuating up and down every single day. I'm talking about what kinds of things I'm doing. So if anybody wants to watch me lose weight live, then in my Instagram story is the place to be. So my handle is Rosentrain, Rosentrain. My website is rosentrain.com. I've got some blog posts up. I've not been the best at being consistent with my blogs, but there are a few things up there that I think people might find interesting. There's a weight loss calorie calculator on there if anybody wants to download that from my website. Again, it's just find it via the blog. And yeah, those are the Instagram's probably your best bet. If you send me a message, please be patient. I've got a backlog of like over 100 messages at the very least I've got to sit down and respond to.
That's why I was surprised you responded to me. I'm like, wow, this guy must have a loaded inbox. I'm pumped he responded.
I try to respond to people who are actually asking me like interesting questions, or other coaches who are, have got interesting questions, or coaches who have been told to follow me by somebody else. I've always tried to make time for those people, because I know how hard it is to build an online presence. I've been doing it since I started taking Instagram seriously about 3.5 years ago. Yeah. So beginning of 2019, which is when I started taking it seriously. It's been a long time, and I understand how difficult it is to be consistent. So if I see a coach is posting good quality content consistently, I'll always make time for them.
And I appreciate you making the time, because honestly, I cannot be more appreciative and thankful that you did this. And because you said it now, I got to keep the consistency up.
There you go. Well, thanks so much, Brian. When I eventually launch my podcast, you are going to be at the top of my list of people to reach out to talk to.
Awesome. I can't wait. Let me know when that happens.
Will do. Hopefully by the end of this year. That's the goal.
All right. There we go. All right. So again, guys, thank you for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week. Go kick some ass. I'll see you next time.